is the only subject that has an entire book devoted to it in the Bible. The only subject. Song of Solomon was written by Solomon. Now Solomon had to know something about lovemaking, simply because he had how many wives? 700 wives and 300 live-in hookers. All right? So 1,000 women. Now, even though he had these many wives and these many girlfriends, little honeys on the side, Solomon, in the book of Song of Solomon, talks about his relationship with one woman that he adores above all of them, because sex was only meant to be between a man and his what? Wife. A man and his wife. Okay? And so when Solomon began to talk, he began to talk about sexuality, he began to talk about lovemaking, because he understood, he was passionate about this woman. It's the only subject, sex is the only subject in Scripture that has an entire book dedicated to it. The only subject. All right? So let's go to Song of Solomon. And want to mention it because some theologians will try to water it down and try to make it think that Song of Solomon is a story of Christ and his bride. You can make the application, but make no mistake about it, Song of Solomon is a book about sexual, sensual, erotic passion. That's what it's about. It's full of metaphors and euphemisms that we see in the Scripture, and we're going to talk about some of those. And it's filled with a bunch of idioms. All right. Now, when we get to the book of Song of Solomon, when they talk about love, it's different than the love that it talked about that Jesus and God had towards us by giving us Jesus. It's different than the love that we're supposed to have for one another as Christian sisters and brothers. The love that we have for one another as Christian sisters and brothers and as family members it comes from the Greek word phileo or Philadelphia, brotherly love. All right, that's the Greek word. The Greek is the language from which the New Testament was derived. The love that Jesus has towards us is the word agape. Okay, phileo or Philadelphia is the kind of love that you have when someone is connected to you, whether they're your family member or they're your Christian brother or sister. That's the kind of love that you have for them. Agape is that extreme kind of love that you give without any conditions. That's the kind of love that God had towards us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. That's the kind of love that you give to people who don't deserve it, but you give to them out of the purity of your heart, even though they don't deserve it. Philadelphia, on the other hand, you give it because you're required to give it. Simply because they're your brother, your sister, your aunt, your cousin. You just give it because you're required to give it. Okay? That's why you can tell some people, I like you, I love you, but I don't like you. Okay? All right. But here in the book of the Song of Solomon, the Old Testament was translated from the Hebrew language. And there was one translation of the Old Testament called the Septuagint. Okay? The Septuagint was the Greek Old Testament. Now, in the Greek Old Testament, in the Septuagint, the Song of Solomon, when it talks about love, it talks about what's known as eros, E-R-O-S. Eros, the same word from which we get our term erotic. Okay? And then in the Hebrew, it's the word ahava. Okay? So repeat those terms with me. Say eros, and ahava. That's the kind of love that they're talking about in the Song of Solomon. Erotic love. Okay? Sexual, sensual love. Okay? That's what it's talking about. Now, when you go to the Song of Solomon, I want to show you something. He makes it clear that ahava and eros is different for a man than it is for a woman. Okay? When you go back and study it, you will understand that a man, his ahava, his eros, his sensuality, his sexuality is based upon he sees. All right? It's based upon what he sees. It's stimulated by sight. Let's go to Song of Solomon chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. Song of Solomon 6, 1 through 11. Now watch what Solomon says. You with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
He says, whither is thy beloved gone, O thou fairest among women? Whither is thy beloved turned aside, that we may seek him with thee? My beloved is gone down into his garden, the beds of spices, to feed in the gardens and to gather lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He feedeth among the lilies. Verse 4, thou art beautiful, O my love. He's talking to the woman. As Tisra, comely as Jerusalem, terrible as an army with banners. Turn away thine eyes from me. He said, I don't want to look at you. You're so fine. For they have overcome me. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Gilead. Thy teeth as a flock of sheep, which go up from the washing, whereof every one beareth twins, and there is not one barren among them. He says, as a piece of a pomegranate are thy temples within thy locks. There are 80 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. My beloved, my dove, my undefiled is but one. She is the only one of her mother. She is the choice one of her that beareth her. The daughters saw her and blessed her. Yea, the queens and the concubines, and they praised her. Who is she that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, and terrible as an army with banners? I went down into the garden of the nuts to see the fruits of the valley, to see whether the vine flourished and the pomegranates budded. Now, he is stimulated when he talks about the vine budded, the vine flourished. He's talking about, yeah. Okay, so he's saying, I've been stimulated because I saw her. Okay, so this is what Solomon is saying. Look at verse 7, chapter 7, verse 1 through 9. He says, how beautiful are thy feet with shoes, O princess daughter. The joints of thy thighs are like jewels. The work of thy hands are of cunning workmanship. Thy navel is like a round goblet, which wanted not liquor. Thy belly is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. Thy two breasts are like two young roes that are twins. Thy neck is a tower of ivory. Thine eyes like the fish pools of Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim. Thy nose is as the tower of Lebanon, which looketh toward Damascus. Thine head upon thee is like Carmel, and the hair of thine head like purple. The king is held in thy galleries. How fair and how pleasant art thou, O love, for delights. This is thy statue, is like to a palm tree, and thy breast to clusters of grapes. I said, I will go up to the palm tree. I will take hold of the boughs thereof. Now also thy breast shall be as a cluster of the vine, and the smell of thy nose as apples, and the roof of thy mouth like the best wine for my beloved, that goeth down sweetly, causing the lips of those that are asleep to speak. All right, this is Solomon talking. He's talking about everything he saw and how he was turned on by what he saw. He was stimulated sensually and sexually by what he saw. Now, for a woman, it's different. It's based upon what she hears and what she feels. All right, and it stimulates her emotionally. For a man, he's stimulated physically by what he sees. For a woman, she's stimulated emotionally by what she hears. All right, let's go here. Let's look at chapter 7, verses 10 through 8. I'm sorry, chapter 7, verse 10, and chapter 8, through chapter 8, verse 7. All right, watch what she says. She says, I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. Come, my beloved, let us go forth into the field. Let us lodge in the villages. Let us get up early into the vineyards. Let us see if the vine flourish, whether the tender grape appear, and the pomegranates bud forth. There will I give thee my loves. The mandrakes give spell, and at our gates are well